Hey, it's Matt, Digital Director of Phoenix Magazine, coming to you from SanTan Gardens. We're going to chat with Alejandro, the head of sales here at SanTan Brewing. Enjoy. All right, we're here at SanTan Brewing, the distillery where they do all the brewing and the distilling for all their great products. You know, your Devil's Ale and your Sacred Stave. Just a wide variety of different brewed and distilled products. Here with Alejandro, the head sales manager at SanTan Brewing. Alejandro, tell me about this place and why you guys decided to call it SanTan Gardens now.
So it was an allusion to the fact that we wanted to build a beer garden on the backside of the brewery and distillery. Unfortunately, what we found out is that a retention basin is a retention basin, and once you want to try and put a beer garden on it, it costs a lot of money in gravel and restructuring in order to turn it into that. So the gardens plan for us, which was supposed to be a beautiful garden in the back, turned into a beautiful patio and stage in the front. So it's just a little adaptation, and just kind of, we were trying to think of how do we do an all-encompassing name for everything we do in this building. It's not just production anymore. It's not, just tours or events or catering. It's a lot of different things, and we wanted to give it a more venue-style name, and so we came up with SanTan Gardens.
Yeah, so you guys could do like concerts here, like corporate events, retreats.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever do weddings here?
I believe we've already done some weddings here. Weddings are a huge part of what we do in the catering department, whether it's here or down at the brew pub. Rehearsal dinners are easily one of our top events that we do all year round. But yeah, concerts. We've had we had Harlan Williams do stand-up comedy here outside. So this beautiful stage, which we'll show you here in a little bit, allows us to bring in lots of different acts, whether it's going to be music or entertainment of some sort. And then also we've got this mini stage that we put inside for the dead of summer events, but once it gets in that little nicer, we'll probably use this a lot less unless it's a really small scale event, and we'll focus the parties on the outside so that we can keep this room cleared and ready for tour groups and things like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. If you're listening to this on the podcast version, we got maybe about a 5 by 10 foot stage here, good for stand-up comedy, or maybe a small like one-man band, maybe two-man band type thing.
Couple people, like when we do our psychedelic Sundays, and we have just a couple people, maybe a couple guitars, nothing too complicated. Yeah, just so that we can have small, intimate kind of entertainment here. Almost at all times.
And you got, we're surrounded by dozens and dozens of, probably hundreds of barrels. Are these full?
Lots of them, and yes.
Okay, what's in there?
The question is how full, depending on what stage they're in.
Yeah.
So typically any of the barrels that are in this room are probably pretty close to being done, because this is a more climate controlled room, meaning the barrels are not necessarily breathing as fast. And when you say a barrel's breathing, heat makes a barrel expand, as wood does, and when it cools off, it contracts and it squeezes the liquid that it sucked into the wood pores out back into solution. So in here, when we have a nice climate-controlled room, these barrels are getting pretty close to being done. You are looking at single malt in most of these barrels, as is going to be the case throughout the distillery. Single malts are crown jewel. It's the liquid that we focus the most on.
Yeah.
It's the one we've won the most awards for. We've won a double gold for our single malt. We've won, I think, 3 or 4 total medals, or total gold medals by now for single malt, which is about to become an American federally recognized category in whiskey, finally.
Oh, nice.
There's Irish single malts and Scotch single malts and Japanese single malts. Finally, we'll have an American.
What kind of competition do you win that at?
New York. So we compete in 2 major spirits competitions: the San Francisco World Spirits Competition.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah,
which is massive, right? That's the one that whenever you're out in stores, typically if you see a medal hanging off a bottle, it's almost always going to be that contest.
Yeah.
Kind of like GABF for us in beer, or World Beer Cup even to an extent. And then the other one is their sister competition, which is the New York World Wine and Spirits Competition. Same company that runs them both. The only difference is in San Francisco, you get more West Coast judges, and then you get more East Coast in New York. So you get a couple different palates that are judging your spirits, and For single malt to medal in both of those competition tells us that doesn't matter what coast you're on or what taste buds you kind of have, single malt is true bona fide gold medal material.
Yeah, and so a lot of that stuff that you were mentioning, your single malts, that's a lot of the stuff that people can find in like Total Wine or a liquor store here locally, right?
Yeah, mom and pop liquor stores are the first things I point people towards.
Okay.
Total Wine's a great partner of ours. They're the ones who have really helped us get our spirits out in a more widely available selection. They've got everything from our single malt or our Sacred Stave brands. They've got a few of the high-end brands that we do, like Butcher Jones and Jacob Waltz. They've also got our cocktail bitters. They've got our RTDs. So yeah, they've been a strong supporter. Fry's has our single malt and one of our vodkas on the shelf as well. So hopefully the answer is going to be everywhere in the next year or two. But yeah, I definitely suggest check your mom and pop liquor stores. Check Total Wines. SanTanSpirits.com/find is the easiest way to find it.
Yeah, well, I think people think of SanTan, maybe they just think of like Devil's Ale for a while, but you guys have had this building now for almost the better part of a decade, and it's allowed you to just do so much more than just beer. Obviously, that's all in the back, but so much more in spirits and bitters, like you were naming off all that stuff. This building allows you to do all that, right?
Yeah, it's
30,000
square feet of fun.
as we talk about it.
I mean, I can even kind of give you a peek behind the door if these guys are okay. This is our cocktail lab or our spirits lab, which you can see all the different bottles of barrels samples that they're collecting. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got barrel samples in here. We've got flavors that we're playing with, whether they're raw natural ingredients or we're using some extracts to play with to dial in flavors to learn what we want to accomplish.
It's a good smelling room.
It's a great smelling room, especially considering right now they're working on a new flavor profile for us, and they come in here and test everything and play with different things, and they've got all this equipment with like pico brews and all kinds of different things that they can use to extract flavors. Our cocktail bitters that we mentioned were developed in this room with our tincturists from all these natural ingredients. They are very botanical based. But yeah, it's just a great place for us to learn, okay, well, what's next? And, how do we get to a certain flavor profile that we're looking for?
Sure. Yeah, good scientists at work in there. I mean, that's a great lab to have. You guys, we have these barrels here. You guys have the benefit of probably being able to rely on your own barrels then to put beer in. You have to try to go and find another distillery to get barrels, right?
We were never a big barrel aging brewery. In this temperature and this climate, and I know there's people that enjoy barrel aged beers year round, but it's really hard to push barrel aged beers year round. Where here we maybe get 8 weeks where it's prime barrel aged dark stout drinking weather.
Yeah.
So we don't focus too much on it. We've done. That's not to say we've never done it. I mean, I remember I came back from GABF one year and tasted this fantastic margarita goza, and came back and was like, hey guys, is this something that we could replicate and do ourselves? And that required us aging a goza in a tequila barrel. And it just came out fantastic. And we've done barrel aged versions of Sex Panther. We've got winter warmer that sits in barrels from time to time that we called Sacred Warmer once upon a time. And so we do play with them once in a while. It's just not something that you're going to see constantly being kicked out of SanTan's line.
I gotcha. Are you guys putting any of these barrels then out to maybe a brewer that wants it then? That wants to do a barrel age?
Anybody who asks, just let us know. The Sacred Stave barrels, I think we try and reuse as much out of it as we can. So a little bit behind Sacred Stave is they're finished on red wine barrels. So that's the unique twist that we like to do on Sacred Stave. And we try and get as much out of it as we can before the barrels are spent. You're not going to get anything out of it anymore. And aging a beer in that afterwards, you're going to pick up some of those whiskey flavors and notes. Hopefully a little bit of the red wine is still in that barrel, but typically a whiskey distillate's going to get past that wine marker on the staves, and it's going to be pulling any flavor that's left. So I think once we get done with them, we've turned them into furniture, we've turned them into tables and display materials and stuff like that. We kind of use them until they're done. But I'm sure they've been getting barrels out to plenty of people out there who are looking to have some fun with those.
And looking around this room, we got good room for a couple dozen people in here that come in. You guys are open like later afternoon, right, for this location? Here we're on Warner between McQueen and Arizona here in Chandler.
Yeah, you go east down Warner off of Arizona Ave, and if you've hit the train tracks, you've gone too far.
Yep.
Because they're literally right next to our building. But yeah, we've got plenty of space here. Typically, this is more often than not going to be a tour hangout space as people get ready to go on their group tours. The bar, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when I get off, usually a usual suspects crew of guys from SanTan enjoying their shift beers, some regulars that pop in here that live in the area, definitely some parents from the gymnastics place across from us as they get a quick beer in while their kids doing their routines.
I might have to get my kids into gymnastics so I could come
Just
here.
Just as an excuse.
They're
absolutely.
like older boys, but I'd be like, guess what? You're going to gymnastics, guys.
Hey, there's lots of fun to be had in gymnastics. I wonder if I could do a balance beam. My balance isn't very good, but...
Maybe after a few SanTan spirits, not so much, right?
I don't think they let you in there after that.
No.
But yeah, so primarily you're going to have a lot of people waiting for tours in here. Definitely corporate events. We've had quite a few of those in here. And we can show you the big stage as well.
Yeah, the tours, you guys do those all the time, right? And people just sign up for them online?
Yeah, SanTanTours.com. Primarily they're going to be Friday, Saturday, Sundays are the big time frames. Obviously very popular to be taking some time to go on a tour. It takes about an hour and a half, hour and a half. And if I remember correctly, $15 a person, and you get that back in samples during the tour.
That's good.
We want to make sure you get to taste a little bit of different things. Like I know immediately on the tour, you get to taste a whiskey wash, which not a lot of places where you get to taste whiskey before it becomes whiskey. Mm-hmm. And so for those not familiar with the process, whiskey starts as a good beer. And that's the one thing that we hammer home is the importance of, in order to make a good whiskey, you have to make a good beer first, and not just the strongest beer.
Yeah.
There's a common misconception in distilling is, I'll just make the highest ABV wash I can get because I'm just going to evaporate it and turn it into whiskey anyways. Well, that vapor still carries some of those flavor elements. And so if you're not taking good care and making a good beer first, you're going to come out with a subpar whiskey. And so we let you taste the washes that we make so that you can see if we would have used a slightly different yeast and then actually finish it as a beer, it would have been a fantastic beer on its own, whether it's a rye beer or a corn-based whiskey, bourbon wash beer, they would come out fantastic. The single malt washes, every time we tap it, I love it. I'll take a little bit and drink.
Is that like super high in alcohol, or is it very low?
No, it's not going to be aggressively high. That's
okay.
That's the thing that I was mentioning earlier, is that you don't just have to make a super high ABV beer. It is going to taste more bubbly. It's got a different yeast to it, a distiller's yeast, not quite a champagne yeast, but something similar where when you taste the wash, yeah, it's going to have a more effervescent, bubbly kind of flavor profile to it, but you just let your taste buds taste the malts behind it, and yeah, it turns into a wonderful beer.
I'll get right back to the interview, but first I wanted to let you know about the Arizona Craft Beer Awards and Festival coming to Glendale on Saturday, October 22nd. Check out azcraftbeer.com for our growing list of breweries, food trucks, and vendors coming to the festival. With the help of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild, we recently judged more than 150 beers from dozens of breweries all over the state of Arizona across 14 categories and a Best in Show winner. We will celebrate the winners and the best craft brews Arizona has to offer at the inaugural ACBA Fest on Saturday, October 22nd on the Great Lawn outside of State Farm Stadium. Grab tickets today at azcraftbeer.com. Part of the proceeds benefit our great charity partner, the Joy Bus Diner. Now back to Hondro and SanTan Gardens. Well, show me this outside patio, because when you walk up, it's got this pretty great little, just welcoming presence, and I could see lights hanging up there as we
brought some tunes cranking, so it might be a little hard to hear.
We can listen to the tunes. So it's kind of we're doing this in mid-September of 2022, and this is going to be one of those spots that you're going to want to come to during the evenings and even during the day when it gets nice fall and winter weather.
Yeah, this place
plenty of seating here for a ton of people.
And yeah, we turn this into a pretty hopping place when we have our shows come. We've got a Headbangers Ball coming up, which is going to have a Metallica cover band, an AC/DC cover band, a couple others as well. So they'll take the stage, and you can see all this room we have, whether it's going to be actual seating or standing room. Plenty of places to hang out and enjoy the show.
Yeah, good stage. I mean, Carpets of Arizona across the street, they're not going to mind a heavy metal band here, right?
Not at all. And typically we've got a backdrop to
Okay.
kind of keep the eyes on the entertainment instead of the street. I think when Harlan Williams was here, he was joking it was the closest he's ever been to a street during a show.
It's kind of fun. It kind of reminds me of if you've ever been up to Flagstaff, they had Flagstaff Brewing Company,
Yeah, of course.
that old spot. It's got
Yeah.
that great patio, kind of like a courtyard.
Yeah.
And they do bands. It's pretty popular.
Flag
in the
Brew is
summer,
awesome.
yeah.
I love going up
Yeah.
there. And that square really, whether you're going to grab noodles or Flag Brew or a cocktail, that whole area is fantastic. But yeah, it backs up right into kind of a public space and a good spot. I mean, there's no complaints here. I used to live right across the street and would be able to walk over here and just hang out on the patio with my dog and grab a quick beer and head back home.
And this is, you can bring your own food here,
Yep.
DoorDash, Grubhub, something here. And then for certain events, you guys have the food truck there, the SanTan Catering food truck for some of your bigger events, right?
Yeah, and we'll get the food truck cranking so that we have a live kitchen on site that we can cook fresh food up right here, right now. But for the most part, it's just grab your grub. You got a favorite local restaurant you like to support? Grab some to go, come grab a beer and hang out and enjoy. It's not a sports bar type mentality. There's TVs up, but they're usually
Sure.
just playing music videos or educational videos on SanTan. We don't play sports here really. This is mostly meant to be just a neighborhood kind of hangout spot to grab a beer on your way home. You know, there's plenty of residential around here. There's a massive trail that goes through here to a park. So yeah, it's a great opportunity, especially once the weather gets nicer. Take the dog for a good walk and then come stop and reward yourself with a beer and hang out. A little bit of a merchandise retail store here as compared to our brew pub in downtown Chandler, which doesn't have a lot of room for that. So we've got a few more options here. I definitely recommend anybody that needs SanTan gear, this is the main
Yeah,
place.
get
to
the
come get it.
merch here. I'll walk inside and I'll show that off here. You guys been doing so many great beers for a long time, whether it's Moon Juice, Juicy Jack, where we got Mr. Pineapple. Now that one won I want to say that one won a World Beer Cup award, maybe?
Silver medal,
yeah.
GABF, and World Beer Cup.
right.
It is our most decorated beer, which is hilarious considering that's an accidental beer.
Isn't that always the case? You know, like I was talking to Jesse, who used to work for SanTan.
Love Jesse.
He brews at Oro now, and he won a World Beer Cup silver for a beer that he didn't even want to brew.
I was
He
reading
doesn't
the
even
article,
like, you know?
yeah. And Jesse, I texted him and congratulated him as soon as I could, and it's a huge testament to guys starting here or having some experience here and going on and doing great things. But yeah, Mr. Pineapple, just like what happened with Jesse, is you made a beer, maybe not the brewer's favorite beer to make, but it happens to be the one that people love the most. And
Yeah.
Mr. Pineapple, when it was first developed, was a scorched batch of Hefeweizen, and they needed to find a way to try and save it if they could. This is back in the very early days of SanTan, where dumping an entire batch would be pretty catastrophic. It's not to say it wouldn't happen, because once it's past a certain quality breaker, you do not want to try and save something like that. So they ended up finding out that some pineapple juice blended into these Hefe kegs turned into a fantastic pineapple wheat beer. And as the legend goes, the beer was submitted to GABF without Anthony's full notice.
Anthony, the owner.
Anthony
Yep.
Konecchia, founder, owner,
Yep.
head honcho here, and they were hanging out at the theater getting ready for the GABF Awards in Denver, and they called it up, fruit wheat beer category, silver medal, Mr. Pineapple, SanTan Brewing Company, Chandler, Arizona. And as the legend goes, Anthony came off the stage and went to his brewers and said, does anybody remember how we made this? Because now we have to.
That's awesome. Is that sort of a history lesson that people can expect on the tour when they come here?
Yeah, hopefully. And I know each of the tour guides have a little bit of a different kind of thing they focus on. There's kind of a main, like the things that we have to teach you, right? We have to teach you about how beer is made and where SanTan came from and things like that. Stories like how Mr. Pineapple came to be, or how ASU got really mad about our original name for Devil's Ale.
Yeah, I know that story pretty well. We told that on a previous episode, and it's still kind of you know, it's funny the origins of Devil's Ale. Here, I'll point at it. Is this still your most popular beer?
No, unfortunately. It's my Alejandro most popular beer because
sure.
I love to drink Devil's Ale.
Sure. Good pale ale, yeah.
But Devil's Ale, as you can probably imagine, as beer trends decided to switch or started to switch, Moon Juice became our flagship.
Oh, okay.
By far. Part of that is because of the explosion of the Moon Juice 24-ounce can. We like to think that we were the first craft beer in a tall can like that. 19.2s were around, Bomber bottles were around. There was not a 24-ounce craft beer can.
What happened to Bombers, by the way? I was thinking about those the other
Cans,
day.
I think cans really helped end the kind of bomber craze. I would really venture to guess on what else could have happened with bombers because, I mean, bombers were great for sharing, right? It was the perfect opportunity and vessel for people to say, okay, you know, I don't probably want to buy a $20-some bottle of beer, but I know me and my 3 friends will gladly split it and split the bottle. I'd be really curious to know exactly why people moved away from it. I know breweries moved away from it. Once 24-ounce cans came into being, that was a great one. And then we've also seen the explosion of the 16-ounce can, right? The silver can with the paper label on it. They seem to be everywhere, and those seem to be the new bombers, right? Those seem to be the new ones that people will get together, and instead of 4 or 5 friends, well, it's just you and one other buddy or you and 2 friends that you'll split a 16-ounce can over.
Sure.
So it seems that people have kind of shifted to those as opposed to the good old-fashioned. And trust me, there's still great 22-ounce bombers that are out there of really high-end, you know, mostly sours and those kind of beers or big stouts. They're still out there. They're just not as dominant as they once were, and I have to assume that's because of, and crowlers. We're not even mentioning crowlers. Crowlers are a fantastic sharing opportunity, and you get a few more ounces out of it. So
I'll get right back to the interview, but first I wanted to let you know about the Arizona Craft Beer Awards and Festival coming to Glendale on Saturday, October 22nd. Check out azcraftbeer.com for our growing list of breweries, food trucks, and vendors coming to the festival. With the help of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild, we recently judged more than 150 beers from dozens of breweries all over the state of Arizona across 14 categories and a Best in Show winner. We will celebrate the winners and the best craft brews Arizona has to offer at the inaugural ACBA Fest on Saturday, October 22nd on the Great Lawn outside of State Farm Stadium. Grab tickets today at azcraftbeer.com. Part of the proceeds benefit our great charity partner, the Joy Bus Diner. Now back to Hondro and SanTan Gardens. Looking at the merch, you guys have some State 48 gear, great local company.
love those
making
guys.
The SanTan Brewing shirts.
They're our neighbors just down Arizona Ave. They're on Guadalupe. They went to Chandler High. Mike and Nick and the boys are very close to SanTan, and we try and work with them on as many projects as we can. We usually have 1 or 2 shirts, collaboration shirts with them at all times, just to keep that Chandler and Chandler local connection.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen those around. Obviously, I follow State 48 a bunch and see their merch everywhere, but this is the first. Are you guys the only brewery that they're working with?
No,
there's more.
I know there's a few others that they've partnered with, but we try and make sure that we've always got something with them. And right now, it looks like we have up to 3. I think we may have a 4th. But
okay,
we've
cool.
got 3 with them right now, and yeah, just another way for us to give back to Chandler in a business environment as opposed to a charity community environment.
And there's always a lot of new stuff going on here at SanTan. When I walked in, you were sampling a little R&D product. You don't have to say what it was or anything, but
more than happy to
that's one of the
introduce it.
perks of coming here to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have this fantastic bar back here, is to try some different things, put some rare beers up, and once we walk around, I'll show you, we've got a 2-barrel system in this building, which obviously not great for sales and marketing, fantastic for R&D and for the brewery. So we've got a few specialty beers right now. What we're dialing in that you got to see me dialing in, we're coming up with the next fall seasonal for us. So we haven't released a new fall seasonal in quite a few years. And this year we're going to release a beer called Lumberjack, which is a oatmeal maple amber. Which is fantastic in the first iterations that I've had, and they're getting it finalized because we start canning later this week.
Sure.
We start going to market in about 3 weeks on that beer, and it'll start hitting shelves real soon.
Yeah, it's going to sound fantastic when it rolls into October. Perfect time of year for to release that.
A different fall seasonal. It's, we, of course, Oktoberfest is huge for us.
Yeah.
I would put our Oktoberfest up against anybody across the country. It is more Arizona style, where it drinks a little bit drier and lighter than maybe your East Coast Oktoberfest beers. And then, it's either Oktoberfest or pumpkin, right? Those are kind of your two fall options, it seems like these days. So we said, you know what, why don't we try and come up with a different fall beer that doesn't have to do with pumpkin. We'll shorten our Oktoberfest season just a little bit and try something new. And that was the birth of Lumberjack, which is going to have these nice maple kind of caramelly notes to it on that wonderfully velvety oatmeal amber.
Yeah.
And just something slightly different for people to enjoy in the fall, where it's not pumpkin or October.
Do you guys do a pumpkin beer?
We don't,
No,
and
okay.
That's something that we'll stick to for the most part.
Yeah.
I think we did a small batch of one for the pub, just to have it, taste it, see how it is. But full push, no. We'll
Like Sex Panther doesn't ever get like a pumpkin
no,
variant
not
or
at
anything
all.
like that.
And
yeah.
pumpkin and chocolate, I'd be interested to see how that goes.
Right.
Sex Panther more often than not. I love the barrel age versions we do. Every once in a while, we'll do what we call Cafe Panther, which is coffee steeped Sex Panther, which is fantastic, right? Natural chocolate notes come out of coffee anyways, and then you add that kind of cold brew bite behind a nice, rich double chocolate porter. That is easily one of my favorite beers that we do occasionally. But yeah, pumpkin's not our thing. Pumpkin and peanuts are really not our
sure.
forte.
Sure.
Here.
I mean, the SanTan Hefeweizen has been around for as long as I can remember. That's another great fall beer, but you guys have that on year-round. That's a mainstay.
Yeah, and Hefeweizen's it's one of those beers that we try and stay as true to Bavarian style as we can on it, because like you mentioned, it can be a very nice fall beer, but here in Arizona, wheat beer's great year-round.
Sure.
Our climate just screams wheat beer. There's a reason why wheat beers were the top craft beer category in the state of Arizona for a very long time. A lot of it thanks to Blue Moon, but there were tons of other great wheat options out there, including our Hefeweizen when it was available in cans. Now it's draft only, which it's even doing better, and just a fantastic wheat beer, and that Hefeweizen led into what Mr. Pineapple is now.
I looked at the Sky Harbor beer. I haven't heard of that one before. What is that one?
So Sky Harbor is I would say a rebrand, except, so this is SanTan's lager, formerly known as 1920, until we got a friendly phone call from another brewery that said, we own that. So we changed it to just SanTan lager for a while. When it was in cans, it was just called SanTan lager. We originally wanted to call it Sky Harbor Lager. It's an homage to the fact that we have a pub at Terminal 3 in Sky Harbor Airport. And that lager was really crafted for the airport, or with the airport in mind, because we knew that your travelers coming in and out, some of them just want a really light lager. That's it. They want something simpler. Some Sunspot, which isn't available here, is oftentimes our number one beer at the brew pub.
Yeah.
And that's the same kind of mindset of your Coors Light drinker that comes in isn't going to have that available. So let's have something, it's not close per se, but comparable, if you will. And there's a light beer option for them. And now we have Sky Harbor Lager. We have, I think, 2 or 3 other lagers on tap right now at the pub, with Day Tripper, which is going to be a more hoppy lager. We've got River King, which is our partnership with Gila River Casinos.
Yep.
We've got more of a tangerine bite on a light lager there. Fantastic beer. I've been drinking that quite a bit. Does really well with micheladas too. That nice tangerine bite on a michelada comes in really well. So we've got a few different lager options to cater to the person that's not quite into craft beer yet. They haven't, we call Epicenter the gateway to craft beer drinking, as most ambers are. I am a prime example of that. When I first moved back to Arizona, which many years ago, Devil's Ale was still too hoppy for me. It was not in my flavor profile. It wasn't on my palate. And so Epicenter is what started me on it. And eventually I was able to gain an appreciation for Devil's Ale and Hop Shock, and then Moon Juice when it came out. And
Yeah, it sounded a lot. I think a lot of people agree with that, like Fat Tire back in the day, or like drinking a Killian's or something.
Yeah.
Those type of reds.
Yeah,
and
our friends at
ambers got
Four
people
Peaks,
into
Kill
it,
Lifter's
yeah.
a great one to get people
Yep.
into craft beers as well. And there's been tons of great amber style, whether it's Scottish style or even more towards the brown end. Oak Creek's Brown, I think, got a lot of people into craft beers. So lots of good examples, not just our own, but throughout the state, of that gateway to craft beer that then allows people to go, okay, you know what? Now that I know a dark beer doesn't necessarily mean hoppy, let's taste a dark beer, and I'll put that in quotes because a caramel beer is technically not dark to me. Let's try a malty beer with now a hop bite to it. And then they go into doubles and hop shock and things like that.
So back to that 1920. So you guys might be. Are you guys leading the league now in like friendly phone calls, or otherwise known as what, cease and desist? Or
when a lawyer gets involved and hours are paid,
right?
that's when it turns into cease and desist. Yeah. I would not be surprised to know that there are probably breweries out there that kind of aim for those. You get in the news for a little bit if it turns into a cease and desist.
For sure.
For us, it's always just been a friendly phone call. There's a reason why not many people know that story is because it's not something we're going to advertise. We didn't purposely, when we named that beer 1920, it was to name it after the year that the city of Chandler was incorporated.
There you go. Also
happens to be right around the time that Prohibition ends. And there's a brewery up, Distill, I think, is the one that owns it.
Sure.
And it was just, friendly phone call. And we've made those phone calls. We've received those phone calls just to say, hey, man, just to make you aware, there's a trademark owned on this, whether, we're getting or sending that message. And it always turns amicably. It's always just, hey, we've got some inventory of cans that we need to go through. Are you cool with that? Those kind of agreements just kind of show how not every craft beer situation is a Stone Miller situation.
Yeah.
A lot of it just gets resolved with a quick phone call, and a lot of it's just cool. Thanks. Just want to make you aware. Thank you for the heads up. We'll go ahead and finish through this, and we'll be done with that as a brand name, and we'll figure something else out. As long as the quality of the beer stays, as much as I'm in sales and marketing, and a name does really matter at a certain point, at the end of the day, if the quality of the beer is great, you can get away with most names, and you'll still be okay on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's just the name of a beer, right? It's not going to really kill anybody, but you want to make sure that you're treating everyone else with respect.
These days it's harder, with
right.
how many breweries there are out there and how many different names there are, and you aren't sure who's got what trademarked. I'm an expert at using the USPTO's database to make sure, hey, are we close? Things like that. I'll do some initial research when we come up with names to make sure we're in the clear. But yeah, it's the nature of the game when there's this many breweries and that many beers out there, is you're eventually going to run into something that somebody else is already using.
Yeah.
You'll think it's the greatest idea and forget that. Usually the greatest ideas have probably already been thought of.
Exactly. You just have to try to copy and not be too close to somebody else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm looking at the wall here. You got some events listed. What are some of the big events coming up here back to this event venue SanTan Gardens is going to host?
So the next big event that we're hosting is coming up on the 24th. That is going to be a
Saturday.
Massive party this Saturday. I believe you're coming to hang out with us.
Absolutely.
We're calling it Beer, Bourbon, Barbecue, and a Band. This is not the first time we've done this event. We did it in spring this year when we were just testing events out here as the patio is being finalized. But that's going to be huge. They're going to have a pig roast. Trey Odom's coming down to play some music. Nick Moody as well. There's two different types of tickets. You can just get GA standing room only for $12. There's VIP, which guarantees you a seat for the stage, which is $30. You also get a food voucher for that. They're going to have tons of food options available. There's a whole list of calendar events there. We just had our Jacob Waltz release party on Sunday, which was huge.
And that's the bottled and bond bourbon that you
This
guys
is
been doing,
the
right?
rarest thing we do. Let me pull you a bottle to see it. This is our 4-year, 100 proof bottled and bond bourbon.
Mm-hmm. Okay, 4 years, yeah.
When we initially set out in spirits, we made a whole lot of single malt, not a lot of bourbon and rye. We started to add more inventory, but of course, time has to take place. And so we only have 2 actual barrels, just like you see up on the wall, that come online a year for this beer or this whiskey right now, which means at a max, we're getting around 400 bottles per season. And in order for it to be bottled and bond, it's got to be a lot of different stipulations, including it's got to be from one distilling season, it's aged in the same barrel, it is 4-year minimum age, it is grain to glass hours, and it also has to be proofed to exactly 100. And because of that, we're very limited. So there's
Doesn't it have to be like one person has to be in charge of the barrel or something too, or is that something else?
You're supposed to have it in a government warehouse. This is a bonded facility, therefore we're allowed to store it here. And as long as Brant and the distilling team keeps all the paperwork clean and they've got everything tracked, and if anybody ever needs to audit it, we're in the clear. We're allowed to do bottled and bond products from here. So yeah, it's just making sure that we're staying honest about what's in the liquid and the paperwork matches that. And yeah, it turns into this fantastic bottle. It is named after the Lost Dutchman of the Superstition Springs. Allegedly, gold hidden out in the Superstition Mountains. There are real gold veins still in the mountains, some of them unreachable from what we were learning. But Jacob Waltz was a very real person that has this kind of Goonies type treasure hunt that people are still trying to solve to this day.
Yeah, and if you listen to our previous episode of the Phoenix Mag podcast with Bonehouse, Jacob Waltz has a made-up nephew, Hans von Bierman. So good stuff here. Looking forward to seeing this event in its full potential coming up this Saturday. It's the 4 beers, right? It's beer, bourbon, barbecue, and a band, right?
There you go.
Awesome.
That
awesome.
middle poster just above you.
Yeah.
You get all the details in there. And,
Trey Odom. What kind of music is Trey Odom known for?
Trey Odom is going to be more like folk country, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've listened to Trey. Rather big name for us coming down here. Obviously, we're not going to be pulling in the Foo Fighters and stuff like that. We're going to have a lot of cover bands here. We're going to have a lot of smaller bands. More locally known musicians are definitely coming through here. We've had our friend Brian Chartrand come through here. As you can see, we've got another lineup of tributes that are coming through, whether it's as I mentioned, the Foo Fighters, Alice in Chains, Rage Against the Machine. We've got lots of good cover bands coming through here, and then every once in a while we'll pop and do a pretty big event with a bigger name.
Okay, there's the event there, Saturday the 24th. Beer, bourbon, barbecue band, 4 to 10 o'clock. Do people need to buy tickets? I guess it's standing room only, $12 advance purchase, 15 days, or $15 for the day of the event. There's VIP seating available for $30. You're going to have a pig roast. You're going to have stuff on the food truck. Right here, SanTan Gardens. There's the address if you're watching this on YouTube here, 495 East Warner Road. It's on Warner. Pretty easy to find. It's a huge building right off the side.
SanTanBrewing.com/events is where you'll go. And not just for this weekend's events, but you can see everything that's coming up. And that's where you'll grab your tickets for the ticketed events. We've got our Oktoberfest coming back for the first time in quite a few years. We are doing a joint partnership with Pedal House out of downtown Chandler. And we're going to throw a much smaller Oktoberfest than what people are familiar with from SanTan. But it's going to be a great time with our friends at Pedal House, right in front of the brew pub in Dr. A.J. Chandler Park. Only $15 in advance. It's going to be a great day. It's just your normal Oktoberfest shenanigans, just a little bit smaller than the bigger parties we've thrown over the past 15 years.
And that's on Saturday, October 1st. 3 to 11 are the Oktoberfest downtown Chandler. Not this location. It's the right outside the original brew pub, downtown Chandler.
Right out front.
That's really blown up recently. You got Pedal House moved in there a couple years ago. Craft 64's down there.
Yeah.
The Perch. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff to do.
Yeah, Look Cinema, Pedal House, Perch. I think that's
Sleepy
Craft
Whales
64
down the
Courthouse.
way. Yeah.
So it's turned into a pretty big craft beer haven down there, and we're all encompassing as far as the more the merrier. When we heard Julian and Doc and the team from Pedal House were opening, we said, great. That's just more variety for people to come down. And if they're not hanging out at SanTan, we just hope they're somewhere in downtown Chandler.
Yeah, it makes a downtown kind of good and walkable. That's kind of what I wrote about in the last issue. You go to like downtown Mesa, there's all these places that are walkable. There's downtown Chandler's kind of the same way now.
Yeah, and it took Gilbert some years to get there too. And as a product of the East Valley, I've been born and raised in this area. You know, I grew up around downtown Mesa. I definitely lived behind downtown Gilbert. I've worked in downtown Chandler for 10 years now. And it's cool to see all these downtowns, you know, some of them had to revitalize a little bit and turn into a central hub of, we can go down there and we can catch a great dinner at SanTan, go watch a live show at Murphy's Law, head over to the distillery if I want to go do some line dancing and two-stepping, and, you know, fancy dinner at DC Steakhouse. There's so many different nights that you can have in downtown Chandler. Depending on how you craft it and how you align what you're going to do, and still come back and there's more. Now we have a barcade down there, which is brand new, the Uncommon, and another place where you can grab a SanTan beer and you know, go play some games down there, which is fantastic for somebody like me that grew up with video games my whole life. And yeah, it's really fun to see it, not just in Chandler, but in Mesa and Gilbert and Glendale now, with their downtown scene really getting popular. And you know, Old Town Scottsdale was kind of the model, if you will, of everybody saying we kind of want something like that. You know, Mill Avenue, those kind of environments of, I can just throw my car in the parking garage, I'm gonna go have some drinks, I'll get it tomorrow, we'll be fine. And I've got this whole area where I can go explore and have different things that I want.
Yeah. And if you come off the beaten path here to SanTan Gardens, awesome event facility. Check the hours online. They're kind of late afternoon, but Saturday is going to be a big party here. I'm looking forward to it. Alejandro, I will see you on Saturday for the beer, bourbon, barbecue, and band. I appreciate your time, my man.
Love to see you, and we'll catch you guys on Saturday.